friends, it's Diane, the Creative Inkster. Today is Monday, May 16th, 2022, and this is time for our creative escape together. Thank you for joining me. Please let me know you're here by popping a comment into the comment section. I love knowing who's watching live and I'm interacting with, and we'll have a little chit chat. And if you're watching the replay, well, thank you for taking the time to do that. I hope you'll find some inspiration here and leave me a comment on what you thought. Tonight's card is inspired by the fact that we have so much pretty paper that sometimes we want to use both sides. We want both sides to be featured. There's a couple of different ways you can do that. This is just one way, and I'm going to show you how to do it with two different cards, actually. So this card here I made ahead of time. It features the Hues of Happiness Designer Series paper. This is the other sort of pattern within it. I think it's set up like, I think it cuts this way. Yeah, that's right. So this was a 12 by 12 piece at one point, you see, and I cut it here. And so this gives you literally hues of color with this paper. So I'm going to show you how I cut and made this card, and I'm going to use this piece, and I'm going to use another piece of paper that I just got in the mail since I made this sample last week. So let's get started. I'm going to show you from start to finish, okay? First off, we're going to get our paper trimmer out, and we need a piece of cardstock that matches our pattern paper. So if you're new to crafting and making cards, I highly recommend you find a pattern paper. Hi, Debbie. Thanks for being here. That you can use this as a jumping off point for finding the cardstock paper that you like. You can always use white or neutrals as a background, but this gives you an idea of what colors kind of go together. So here is my piece of Melon Mambo. I rarely use this color, and so it was really good to get it out. I want a piece for my card base that measures 5.5 by 5 1/4. So I am going to get two of this card out of one piece because I'm going to cut it along this 11-inch side at 5.5. Now normally you would go down at 4 1/4 and you'd have a full card base. We're going to do this a little differently. So along the short side, so I have the most amount of scrap to work with later, I'm going to cut this at 5 1/4. All right, so it's 5 1/4 wide, still 11 inches long. I've got this nice large scrap piece to use for whatever afterwards. Then I'm going to take my 11-inch piece, turn it 90 degrees to one side, and cut it at 5.5. All right, there's another piece for a second card. So here we have our piece that's 5.5 by 5 1/4. With your 5 1/4 inch side horizontal, you're going to score it at 4 1/4. We're creating a little flap. So we still want our card to be 5.5 inches long. We want to create a little 1-inch flap like this, and that is how we're going to attach our pattern paper so we can see both sides. So for our pattern paper, speaking of which, I've got the scrap left over from when I cut this 12-inch length. I had it here a little while ago. There we go. And so I need this to be 5.5 inches long by 4 inches wide. So when I have pattern paper that comes in 12 by 12 sheets, I typically do cut it at 4 inches so that I have the most I can kind of work with. Whether I'm making samples with it or I'm using it for a class, I find if I cut it at 4 inches, I've got the most I can work with. So there it's 4 inches wide already. That's all I need. And I want it to be 5.25 inches long. So I love this Melon Mambo color here, and I want most of that to appear. I like this color at the top, but that's what I'm going to end up cutting off. So cutting this at 5.5, I've got this small piece here, which if you've watched my other videos, you can see how you just slide that in on the inside, and there you're not using it for any scrap. You can also stick this on your envelope for your card. All right, so there we've got these two pieces, and then for the inside of the card, I've got a piece that's our normal 4 by 5 1/4. So let's trim this guy down to 4 inches by 5 1/4. That's a bit of scrap. Okay, now we're ready to put our card together. So because this is a small flap, I do recommend that you use your bone folder or the edge of your scissors or the edge of your thumb to get a nice crisp fold there. We'll slide the white in first, and you'll see me using tonight some tear and tape. Normally, you think of tear and tape for things like boxes and 3D items because it's a really good sturdy tape. But did you know it is also the most economical tape runner type tape that we sell? Obviously, your Tombow liquid glue is going to go a really long way. It's liquid, lots fits in the bottle, but if you like having something that's more like a tape, tear and tape by the inch is actually the better value. So I wanted to show that to you. I know it's not as easy as using a tape runner where you don't have to pull the backings off, but let me tell you, this stuff sticks great. It doesn't get gummed up on the edge because it's just on a big roll, and it's super easy to work with. So I throw that out to you as an idea. Okay, so here's our little wee flap on the side, and what we're going to do is we're going to stick some adhesive along this edge, not necessarily right near the fold, but more near the edge. And the reason for that is there's a little bit of a space here. So I'm gonna line this up. The way to get around the space is to actually make this 4 1/4 inches wide. But as I mentioned at the top of the video, I don't really want to cut my paper in a different length than 4 inches wide. I feel like I get the most out of the paper that way. So we're going to add some tape down here. I'm going to send it down the whole length. Again, the open end. When you have just one piece, it goes real quick like that. And then peel it off. You can use take your pick tool, or like I do, my scissors. It just seems to be what I tend to use. And now we want to line this up nicely. We want to square it up so that when we fold this sticky flap over, hi Brenda, it's gonna stick evenly. So what I recommend you do is tap it down so it's flush at the bottom, and make sure it's flush left and right, and then just fold this layer over. I didn't even stop to think of it, but the right side showing up. And that's how you can see your pattern paper on both sides of your card, and you're not hiding something. So I think Stampin' Up's getting wise to the fact that we have certain patterns we like so much, because I was looking through the stash of papers, and I didn't have as many as usually where I absolutely love both sides and wouldn't want to cover them up. This is cute and I like it, but I love this. So I'm not sure if I'm going to find a lot of this, but I do like the use of this for it. Now, one of the other features I want to show you is about this ribbon here. This is our organdy, glittered organdy ribbon. It's kind of clear, and it has mostly pink and iridescent little flecks in it, but you can color it just as I've done here. So on this one, I colored it with this Starry Sky Stampin' Blend. Now, our Stampin' Blends are alcohol based. There you go. This is where I did it on. So let's find a little more open or cleaner scrap so you can see what I'm doing here. First off, I'm just going to measure how much I need, and it's about 16 inches. So this is how I measure it. I wrap it around the inside and then pull it back to however much I think I need to tie a knot or a bow. So I had written down in my notes 16 inches. Let's see if I ended up with around that. Oh, I think I made it, no, just about exactly, like 16.5 inches, if that. So now we're going to color it. It is lovely iridescent, and it would actually be lovely with this card, but let's take it to the next level. So I've got my Melon Mambo Light Stampin' Blend, which, as I was mentioning, is an alcohol-based marker. You'll notice that they have 3 dots here, that's where you kind of put your thumb to kind of get it started to open it. I obviously don't use this one very much because if you pull the lid like this off, sometimes it'll splatter across your project. So you want to push up on those 3 dots to get it out. And coloring it is super easy. Doesn't matter what side, because at least on this ribbon, it goes right through, and on many of our ribbons, it goes directly through. So you just, and it dries really quickly, so you might get a little bit on your thumb or your finger from holding it down, but it doesn't really last. And besides, just like you wouldn't trust a skinny cook, why would you trust a clean-fingered crafter? They should have some glue or some glitter or some ink, something should be on their fingers at all times. That's just how we are. So I'm using the side of my blend because I don't want to damage the tip. We're using it kind of beyond what its intended use was, but honestly, this really takes it up a notch. All right, so there's our ribbon colored, and you'll see that there'll be spots that are a little darker than others, and you can just go back over them. One thing I like is to get the edges done so they come up a little bit darker. And that's our piece. Mostly dry. A few little spots on my inky fingers. Totally fine. Now just remember to cap these Stampin' Blends when you're done. So line it up. There's a little track inside that you can see where the point goes. You want to get that in straight and then press hard because it's alcohol based. It will just evaporate around you. All right, so this is a lighter pink. It almost looks like our polished pink color. So I could have used the darker Melon Mambo, but this works just fine. And I'm just going to tie a knot. I find when you add the Stampin' Blends color to any of our ribbons, it makes them a little stiffer, the ribbon a little stiffer, which is kind of nice for when you're tying them in knots and bows, because it gives a little bit of stiffness to it. I'll just snip off some excess here. Oh, I wanted to do that on an angle. Let's try that one again. Not that it needs to, because this ribbon doesn't fray, but I think it looks nicer when it's on a bit of an angle. And I'm okay if my little pieces kind of fall off too. So isn't that pretty? Look at that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you can take the inside and add it there. I might actually take this side. It's the same width. It's also 4 inches. So let's grab our tear and tape and add 2 pieces. Why is she using tear and tape? Well, if you heard me at the top of the video, it's because it's the most economical tape runner type adhesive that we sell. I've done the math, so I can tell you that for certainty. There, so we can show that on this side. Isn't that pretty? All right, so then I would want to add some kind of a greeting, and I'll just leave that for your imagination, or I may add it later because I'm finding I have so many cards that have the same thing that I need to go back later and come up with the greetings as I need to use the cards. So here's this one done. This would make a gorgeous note card set to give away to somebody. So let's repeat. This time I'm using Texture Chic Designer Series paper that arrived this weekend. Well, Friday, I guess, after I'd already designed this card for tonight. And this is a 6 by 12 because when I sell my papers, hi Linda, when I do a paper share, and if you're not sure what a paper or product share is, I'll give a quick introduction to that. It's where all the papers that are the Designer Series papers, or whichever ones I choose to go in, this time I'm using all the Designer Series papers from the new catalog. You get a sampling of each one, so instead of buying all the packets and spending $300, you can purchase them and get 6 by 6 squares. Or if the paper is like this, I'll leave it long for you, so it's 6 by 12. And so you get a nice sampling from all the paper packs of each of the patterns available. So if you're interested in that, let me know. It's a great way to give that a go. So because I have this cut in 6 by 12, and I need a 4 by 5.5 inch piece, I'm going to cut it this way. So I'm still cutting into my 4-inch side. So I now have a 4x6. This paper is perfect because it doesn't have a specific up or down. And then I'm going to cut it down to 5 1/2. 4 by 5 1/2. Okay, there's my piece. This is gorgeous. And the back, gold, we want that to show, don't we? And then, oh, I need my card base. So let's remember what we were doing with the card base. We're going to go at 5 1/4 along the 8 1/2 inch side, horizontal at the top. Going to cut at 5 1/4. We've got a nice chunk of scrap for something else. And then we'll cut it at 5 1/2 this way. We have enough for 2 cards. And we're going to just score this along the 5 1/4 inch side horizontal in your trimmer. You're going to score it at 4 1/4. And some people tell me that they find that the scoring blade doesn't give a good impression. You saw me move it back and forth 2 or 3 times. I think that's just a habit I've gotten into. But another thing you can do, and I've seen a number of demonstrators in the US do this, take your bone folder and run it down, and you'll get a nice scored edge. It's a little thicker, and so that may or may not be what you want. And we'll fold this over, give it a good crisp burnishing. I don't have a white for the inside of this card, but that's okay because it's a nice light color. There's nothing holding you back from putting your piece on the outside so you see more of it. You'll just see less on the inside. And so that's where the ribbon comes in, just to hide that seam between the two. So we'll grab our tear and tape. We're going to go down the outside cut edge. What a way to make your cardstock go further, eh? And I lined this up on the right. Let's see, I really don't see an up or down too much. I'm going to shore it up by straightening the edge along the bottom and the left and right. And then I'm going to fold this side over to meet it. And there we go. Seeing both sides of this beautiful card. This would have looked equally nice on the other color that's predominant in this paper, which is soft succulent, but I decided to go with the light color. And now I'm going to color my ribbon with the light and or dark soft succulent. So here's my scratch paper. I'm going to start with the light soft succulent because I feel like if I go too dark, you can't go back, right? You've already committed to a dark shade on it. So if you go light, then you can always add more color. And it's, again, 16 inches. Find my little dots and press forward. I'm using the brush end, not the straight bullet end, but the brush end. And with the light, I think I used the, what did I use, the dark? I used the light Melon Mambo. So this is the light soft succulent. Any questions? I don't see any questions in the notes here on the side, but if you have any questions, let me know. Now, you do need to be careful with your blends this way. I tend to be pretty rough with mine, and so sometimes I need to replace them, but there is little flecks of shine in this ribbon, so you just want to carefully go along the edge and not go straight down with your tip, or you may damage the tip, and then that makes it get frayed, and it just doesn't color as nicely. All right, so how did we do? I like this. It's nice and light. It makes those pretty pink flecks show up nicely. Put the lid on, tuck that aside, and we're mostly dry. Wrap it around the inside, covering up the place where they're joining. This is beautiful, this texture chic. It's so shabby chic looking. It's just a really beautiful suite. I'm looking forward to playing with this paper. There we go. Line it up a little bit. Now, if you find that your ribbon does not lie nice and flat like you'd like it to, even after you've done your knot, you can always put a piece of like a little glue dot in behind there. I don't have a glue dot handy because I've got them packed to go to a class later this week. So I'm just going to cut a little smidge of my tear and tape off, and I'm going to tuck that down there. You see that what I'm doing? Peel the back off, and like a glue dot, I'll just give my knot a place to anchor itself, and then I won't be flipping back and forth. All right, and then I'll just trim off my ribbon because I do like it a little bit shorter. There we go. And I think this would be a really lovely sympathy, thinking of you kind of card. So I'm going to wait and put that kind of greeting on. The stamp set that goes with this paper suite is called Happiness Abounds. And these pretty flowers, it has dies. And here's something about these flowers. It's not this pattern on the paper. It might be one of the other ones though. Some of the dies actually cut out the flowers in the paper. If you haven't noticed that that's what it does, that's another feature of these. Yeah, so it's not these particular ones. It's another pattern paper in the suite. So anyhow, that's it for me. Oh, thank you so much for your kind words, guys. You're so awesome. Yeah, I do try to explain as best I can. So nice to have your comments. It keeps me going. So I will be back tomorrow night. I've got a technique going on. And I'm looking back over my shoulder because it's all ready to go. And I'm excited to share that with you tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Same bat time, same bat station. And I shall see you here. Thanks for watching, and thanks again for being here, my folks. Take care. Bye now.